74% of Americans believe in angels and ghosts. More people believe in angels and ghosts than actually voted in the last presidential election. So I was thinking the other day that if one of the leading candidates in this next election would stand up and say, hey, listen, I'm an angel believer and a ghost believer, they could appeal to a much larger voting bloc. You know, along with that belief comes the idea that when we die, we all become angels. Could you talk with us a little bit about just your experience with people dying and family that are present and afterwards, kind of where they're at and what's going on?
That's a great, great question. One of the things I've seen working in hospice, and this is so common, anybody that works in hospice will be able to tell you this. Towards the end of life, our dying patients frequently, this happens at least on a weekly basis, if not a couple times a week for me, where the family will tell me the loved one who's dying is seeing deceased loved ones or seeing angels or seeing people. This is frequent. And in fact, it used to be doctors called these hallucinations, end of life, but they no longer call them that because there have been so many studies done. Dying people all over the world have the same experiences. And so it doesn't matter what culture you're in or what your economic status is. This is so common. So they no longer call them hallucinations, but they don't know what to call them. So this is a very common experience. And interestingly, it's always loved ones, it never induces fear. It doesn't make the person that sees deceased members or people that they really loved and had affection for. So it's not a scary thing. That's an interesting thing. Except one time I had this one patient who was an atheist, an avowed atheist, and he had actually been a philosophy teacher and had been trained at Harvard. So we're talking a brilliant guy. Wonderful man. I really enjoyed him. Very kind man. But he firmly believed that when you died, that's it, nothing, you just cease to exist. And he couldn't wait to just cease to exist. He was just tired, ready to go. And so we had these conversations, and I just supported him, what he believed. And a couple weeks before he died, his mother and father would appear to him. And it freaked him out to reevaluate his whole life belief. What if there is something after this? But they were people that he had loved, but it freaked him out because it rocked his whole worldview that what if there is something? But that is such a common thing. And anybody that's listening to this, if they've had loved ones that have died, they will know that there are just stories like this. What do we do with that? I don't know. Do people become angels? I have no clue. But I know that there are just things beyond our knowing. And in my belief, whatever happens after that, look, I know everybody particularly has so many strong opinions about what happens after this life. I just trust that it's good, whatever it is. I just trust that it's going to be good.
Well, I ran across a quote this past week when I was reading, a quote by Carl Sagan. It is the responsibility of scientists never to suppress knowledge, no matter how awkward that knowledge is, no matter how it may bother those in power. We are not smart enough to decide which pieces of knowledge are permissible and which are not. And I think with the world as connected as it is and how quickly a story can get out there and be exposed to a very broad and large audience, people are very interested in trying to piece together all these pieces and see what the puzzle yields. And with these experiences come a lot of things that we just don't understand. And it's easy for the cynic or the skeptic to discredit it. But in the end, it's all part of the puzzle that we call life and in this case, death. So in reading that quote, it was very compelling that we are not to discredit anything, but to open our minds and open our hearts.
Your reading of Carl Sagan's quote reminds me of one of my favorite quotes is from Arthur Clarke, who I believe was a science fiction writer, Arthur C. Clarke, I think. And And he meant the quote one way, but I take it another. And his quote is this: the two scariest thoughts that I've ever had. One, we are not alone in the universe. Two, we are.
Yeah.
And I think he meant that in terms of aliens or whatever, but I turn that in terms of God.